The first light on Highway 67 doesn't rise so much as seep thin and pale. Like courage after a long night, Keisha Morgan props the diner door with her hip and rolls out the chalkboard. Morgan's WAY coffee hotter than Arkansas July. The letters tilt a little. The way her grandmother wrote them, stubborn and cheerful at once. She breathes in lemon cleaner and burnt sugar from yesterday's pecan pie. Then flips the switch on the hulking percolator that hums like an old friend clearing its throat. Shadow, her Belgian Malinois, watches from his place behind the counter. Chin on paws, eyes bright as candle wicks. He doesn't make a sound. He never does unless she tells him. The dog's ears tick with each small noise, the compressor coughing on the soda machine, the far-off moan of a logging truck, the tiny clink as Keisha drops quarters into the tip jar seed fund. She moves with that measured, economical rhythm she learned at 19. Hands know where the filters are. Shoulders roll loose, stance offset just enough to pivot on a dime. 100 little habits that look like ease until you need them. Morning, Sergeant, she murmurs, using the rank Shadow never had but always owns. He thumps his tail once against the rubber mat. On the wall, sunlight finds the frame with her grandmother's photo opening day. 1963. Pine Hollow wasn't ready then for a black woman's name on a highway sign. But she'd hung it anyway and poured coffee anyway, and when men in stiff hats muttered that roads belonged to certain people, she'd look them dead in the eye and asked if they wanted hash browns. Keisha touches the glass edge like a salute. The bell above the door tings at 6:04 when the first regular usually rolls in. It tings again at 6:05 and no one comes. Quiet sits heavy out on the asphalt ribbon. A crow hops around a flattened drive pepper can, and the pines shiver when a breeze combs through them. Keisha's gut tightens, not from fear, exactly more the way a barometer tightens before weather changes. She shakes it off and ladles batter into a skillet, lets it kiss the heat. The smell of browning butter is a kind of shield. Shadow's ears lift. His head turns, slow and sure, toward the parking lot. A rumble follows to low for the sedan that brings Mrs. Henderson Thursdays. Heavier than Earl's old pickup, it quivers the window glass, a bass note under the fryer's hiss. Keisha wipes her hands, sets the spatula down, and slides to fingers along the underside of the counter until they brush cool brass. The small bell she taught Shadow to understand. Not yet, just there, ready. Gravel complains. Headlights spiderweb across the blinds and go dark. The bell dings. 1, 2, 3 boots. The smell that comes in with them is cheap cologne laid over last night's smoke. They fan without thinking. You can tell a lot by how men enter a room. The red-bearded one with the chipped tooth centers himself in the aisle like he's claiming a street. The heavy-shouldered one drifts to the far end of the counter where the back hall begins. The youngest flicks the open sign with his knuckle and lets the door swing shut hard enough to make the napkin holders tremble. They do not look at the menu. They look at her. Morning, Keisha says. Same tone she'd use for a church group asking for extra syrup. The space between her feet narrows by an inch. Weight goes to the balls, knees soft. Shadow's shadow doesn't move. Redbeard lets his gaze travel the length of the room. A catalog of what might break. His grin lands on Keisha like a sticker someone else will have to peel off later. Sweet little spot, he says, voice buttered. The iron viper's patch on his jacket winks when he leans in. Around here, everyone knows that coiled metal snake. Road gets lonesome this way. Folks appreciate a friendly face, you know? Knuckle scars stacked on his hands like bad decisions. Scrapes a stool back with his boot heel and sits. He drums on the counter, ring the laminate, click, 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 a metronome for trouble. The youngest, haircut done by a grudge, angles himself near the door. Vantage good enough to watch the lot, close enough to twist a lock. Keisha pours coffee into a thick ceramic mug and sets it down in front of no one in particular. House blend, $2.50, she says. Then, because silence is a blade they're testing for sharp, pecans were good last night. He's better this morning. You hear that, boys? Redbeard says. Hospitality. He draws the word out until it gleams ugly. Maybe we ought to talk hospitality fees. Knuckles laughs, a single bark. The kid's mouth quirks, like he's not sure yet if this is a game. Outside, somewhere, a chainsaw coughs to life. Keisha lets the sound pass through her. Coffee's $2.50, she repeats. She doesn't ask what they want because they didn't come for waffles. Redbeard reaches across the counter, slow as molasses poured for a camera. His palm hovers over her wrist. He's not actually touching her. That's the point. Thing about these back roads, he says, is they belong to the folks who look after 'em. My boys and me don't, Keisha says, and steps back exactly 2 inches, enough to make his hand hang stupid in the air. Her voice doesn't rise. It doesn't need to. You can pour steel into quiet. Shadow's eyes are twin coals now. He lifts his head a fraction, then lays it down again. The bell under Keisha's fingers is cool and patient. You know who you're talking to, the kid says, finally finding his line. He edges his heel toward the door frame, testing the swing. The stretch is Viper's turf. Ask around. I have, Keisha says. They said y'all can't tell your left from a lane marker. Knuckles snorts. Redbeard's grin evaporates. The room grows smaller by a thumb width. The fryer ticks. Somewhere behind the mural of pines and cardinals, the compressor coughs again and steadies. Keisha feels the old lessons slot into place. Count exits, count hands, count shoulders. Watch for the one who doesn't want to be here. He's the one who will run first. And men who run first often yell first too. You alone out here, miss? Redbeard asks, but the word miss has gravel in it. Our county boy's busy. Long response times. Shame if something went wrong. Health inspector was here last week, Keisha says. He liked the grits. Is that right? Redbeard leans in until she can see the tiny stitches along his beard, where someone once did poor surgery with fishing line. Tell you what, we'll start small. You put an envelope under the mat on Thursdays. Keeps your windows whole. Keeps your customers unbothered. Keeps everyone happy. And if I say no? He smiles again, but it isn't a smile at all. Then this highway forgets your name real fast. The kid flicks the chain on the open sign again. Brighter now in the climbing sun. He looks through the glass like he expects a witness to appear and decides there won't be one. He's right. Pine Hollow wakes slow, and there's a mile of pines in both directions for sound to die in. 250, Keisha says, and nudges the mug closer, the tiniest shove. It leaves a warm ring on the laminate and stops exactly where she wants it. Her grandmother used to say the counter wasn't just a counter, it was a line. You can welcome people across it, or you can make them earn the right to stand on the warm side. Redbeard's eyes drop to the coffee, then back to her. The little tilt of his head is the first honest thing he does. He doesn't like being refused. He's deciding what lesson to teach. Knuckles shifts, rolling the weight in his hips, loosening shoulders. The kid tests the door with his fingers. The bell above it gives a minute chirp, a bird you could miss if you weren't hunting birds. Hospitality fee, Knuckles says, almost cheerful. Or we educate you on the curb. Keisha's hand settles beneath the lip of the counter where the brass bell waits. She can feel the faint seam where someone once dropped it and dented the edge. Her other hand rests palm down, open, a tiny message to the dog most people don't notice, stay. Shadow's eyelids hood. His body is a loaded answer. I don't pay to be left alone on a road my grandmother paved with coffee and pie, Keisha says. And you don't decide who belongs. Not here. For a beat, no one moves. Dust hangs in the gold through the blinds. 3 motes drift between Redbeard and her like slow planets. He reaches, and this time it's not a hover. It's a grab, fast and thoughtless. The way men will when they're sure a thing will break in their hand. Keisha slides back a single step, and his fingers close on air. The failure surprises him. It always does when a target turns out not to be a target. His wrist hangs over the counter lip, foolish and exposed. And she sees the faded stamp of a county fair bracelet. People like him grow up winning ring tosses and thinking that's physics. The fryer ticks again. Outside, a crow heckles the morning. Redbeard's smile drops off his face like a plate pushed off a table. Last chance, he says. You put that envelope out, or we take you for a little walk. Knuckles stands, the stool legs squealing on tile, and the kid pivots toward the door in the same motion a man uses to check a rear view. Before he guns it, he looks at the lock, then at Redbeard, then back. The choice takes a quarter-second. His hand shoots up. The bolt slides home with a flat. Certain clack. Gravel isn't supposed to sound like bones. But tonight it does. Keisha's boots drag across the lot as Red and Nux haul her out of the diner, one jerking each arm like they're trying to pull her apart. The sky over Pine Hollow hasn't decided on day or night. Thin streaks of orange bruise the horizon, but the air already tastes like trouble. Highway 67 stretches empty in both directions, a black throat waiting to swallow sound. No cars, no witnesses, just miles of pine trees and men who think 3 against 1 is good math. Shadow hasn't moved. Not yet. He stays inside. She knows he does, waiting behind the counter where she ordered him to remain. That order sits heavy in her chest like a stone. Most people think the hardest command to teach a dog is attack. It isn't. It's wait. The kid, Duke, trots ahead of them, glancing over his shoulder like a hyena, waiting his turn at the carcass. His laugh is thin and nervous. He kicks a rock just to hear something break. Take her behind, Red growls. Behind the diner is worse, no road visibility, shielded by the old propane tank and pine scrub. Good cover for men who don't want to be seen. The wind smells like sap and engine oil. The metal siding of the diner is still cold from the night. Keisha knows exactly what they think this is. A scare tactic. A lesson. Humiliation. That's how small men try to build power, by burning holes in others. Nux shoves her against the wall. Her shoulder hits sheet metal, rattling bolts. Lightning pops in the socket of her arm, but she stays quiet. He expects fear. They always do. She won't give him even a crumb of it. Red steps close to close. His beard brushes her cheek and reeks of cigarettes and rotting ego. You think this is a game, sweetheart? You think Highway 67 respects your grandma's coffee shop fairy tales? Keisha doesn't speak. Silence unsettles predators more than threats. You're gonna pay, Red continues. And if you don't, he lets the sentence hang as if violence is punctuation. Duke licks his lips. Let me get the first hit, he says. His hands twitch. He likes this too much. Red ignores him. Nux pins her with his forearm across her chest. He leans close, hot breath on her ear. Girls like you don't last long out here. There it is again, girls like you. The old code. Not woman. Not business owner. Black. Alone. Outnumbered. A warning disguised as prophecy. She has heard it from drill sergeants, judges, fake allies, and smiling enemies. The words change zip codes, but not shape. He squeezes harder. Her airway tightens. Her vision sharpens. Not blurs, adrenaline turning the world into math. 3 hostiles. One knife on Red's belt. Brass knuckles in Nux's pocket left side. Duke has a switchblade. Toy stuff. Junk steel. Distance to diner door, 12 steps. Wind direction strong from west, good for masking signals. Shadow position. Rear counter line of sight to door, keen hearing. If she signals him now, he'll come hard. Too soon. Let's move this, Red snaps. Off the wall. Take her down to the trees. Private lesson. As they begin dragging her again, Keisha lifts her eyes not to them, but to a shattered piece of chrome trim lying in the dirt. Bent, reflective, useless to them. Useful to her, when Red jerks her forward. She lets her right boot scrape, not clumsy, but measured, steering them exactly where she wants, past the patch of loose dirt, near the dented toolbox, within sight of that tiny chrome shard. Her heel hooks it, flips it, and it slides 5 feet across gravel, catching the faintest slice of light. To them, nothing. To Shadow, a mirror signal. It flashes once. The dog will now track her position no matter where they drag her. She lets her knees dip, like she's tiring. Red's grip loosens by instinct. Nux moves his weight. They think she's fading. Good. Duke steps too close. Bad move for Duke. Let me ask you a question, Keisha says finally, voice steady. Does it bother you, knowing this is the best you'll ever be? Nux shoves her. Shut your mouth. 3 men in a parking lot. Against 1. She lifts her chin. Pathetic. Red steps in front of her, face tightening. You still don't get it, no, she says. I get everything. She leans forward. You're weak, and you hate people who aren't. Red swings. She slips. His fist hits metal, not bone. She drives her elbow into his triceps, deadening the arm, and twists away. Nux reaches, but her palm finds his wrist, and with a snap motion she peels him sideways, using his own weight. He stumbles. Duke moves in from behind, shouting, blade out. She doesn't look at him. She just whistles, a single short blast. Not a human whistle. A command, the kind that hits a dog's brain like thunder. The diner door doesn't open, it explodes. Shadow launches through it like a streak of muscle and purpose. He doesn't bark. He doesn't warn. He flies. Duke is still yelling when Shadow hits him center mass. The blade spins out of Duke's hand. Dog and man roll through dust. Duke screams high, cracked panic as teeth lock into his forearm. Shadow holds, not tearing, not killing. Control bite, professional, tactical. Red snaps his head up, shock breaking across his face like glass. What the? Keisha doesn't give him time to finish. She drives a front kick into his thigh. He drops. Nux charges from the side, but she slips inside his reach and buries a punch into his ribs, fifth and sixth hard. His breath leaves his body in a grunt that sounds painful and surprised. Duke is flailing under Shadow. Get it off me. Get it off. Shadow. Keisha points. Guard. The dog releases but doesn't retreat. He plants over Duke's chest, lips peeled back just enough to promise violence if invited again. Duke freezes. Red staggers to his feet, rage replacing confusion. He reaches for the knife on his belt. Keisha is already there. Her foot knocks the blade from his grip. He looks up at her, sees something he didn't see before. Not a business owner. Not a girl. Not alone. A soldier. His eyes flick to the dog. To Nux gasping on his knees. To Duke whimpering. To the diner that suddenly feels like enemy ground. Red backs up. You made a mistake. He spits. A big one. I don't pay extortion, she says. He bares his teeth. This road ain't yours. Keisha steps forward, controlled and cold. This road belongs to whoever has the spine to stand on it. His face twists. He grabs Duke by the collar and yanks him up. We're not done, no, Keisha says. You're not. And he sees it in her eyes. There will be no fear here. No bending. No backing down. He hates her for it. They retreat to their truck, bloody, humiliated. Red slams the door so hard the frame shudders. Tires spit gravel as they roar away. Keisha watches until the tail lights vanish down Highway 67. Shadow returns to her side, steady, silent. She kneels, rests a hand on his fur. Good boy. The wind shifts. Something metallic glints on the diner wall. Spray paint. Fresh. A coiled steel snake jagged. FANGED. The mark of the Iron Vipers. They didn't just come to collect money. They came to claim territory. And they will be back. Night comes early on Highway 67, not by the clock, but by the way the forest swallows light. By the time Keisha finishes boarding the side window they shattered earlier, the world outside the diner is ink. Not a peaceful kind, heavy, thinking kind. The kind that watches. Shadow moves ahead of her as she steps inside, scanning rooms with muscle and memory. She secures the back door, checks the bolt twice. Old habits from war zones never leave you. You either keep them or you never come home. She kills the diner lights, but leaves one lamp glowing in the office. Not because she needs it, because predators stalk brightest bait. Then she goes to the monitor wall she's built from second-hand parts and stubborn resolve. The security cameras flicker to life. For cameras outside. 3 inside. One old feed archiving to a dusty hard drive Sabine from the pawn shop said would die any minute now. That was 9 months ago. Seaman, girl, Keisha mutters. Live a little longer for me. The past 3 nights, fast forward in white noise, silence, headlights. Trucks, semis, a streak of deer. Occasional loners stopping for coffee then rolling out. Nothing strange until to 17 a.m. The tape shutters. A truck rolls up, not the one from this morning. Bigger, blacked out, idles with its lights off. A second vehicle pulls in behind its sedan, tinted windows, slow and deliberate. No plates. Keisha whispers. Not missing. Removed. She leans forward, adjusting the contrast. The driver's door of the sedan opens. A tall man steps out. No jacket patches. His posture isn't gang slouch. He holds himself like a leader, calculated, aware, economical with movement. His face stays shadowed. From the truck, 3 figures emerge, Red, Nux, and Duke. They cluster near the back corner of the diner where the camera doesn't fully reach. But tonight, luck plays on Keisha's side. The chrome of Red's belt buckle throws back a tiny angle of light. giving enough silhouette to track them. A fourth man steps into frame. He wears a law enforcement jacket. Just a sliver of lettering shows as he leans forward, COUNTI. Her pulse slows, not in fear, in confirmation. She knew it. Sheriff's office. So Iron Vipers aren't just a gang, they're protected. She rewinds, watches the moment again. This time she sees what she missed, an envelope being passed. Then another. The lawman doesn't glance around. He's comfortable. Practiced. He owns this territory. The sheriff, Reed. It has to be him. The same man who warned her weeks ago about keeping quiet on this road. And reminded her, folks like you shouldn't stir up trouble. Folks like you. She exhales slowly. Anger stitched down tight under calm. Shadow lifts his head, sensing the storm in her bones. Easy, she says. We don't hit what we can't see yet. She grabs her phone, snaps shots of the screen frame by frame. Grainy, dark, but usable. Enough for a pattern. She checks the time on the recording to 17 a.m. Meetings happening when Pine Hollow sleeps. She keeps watching. A rough paper map unfolds across the back of Red's truck. They point at the highway. Marker pens draw circles and paths. Red gestures toward the diner. They nod. Keisha pauses mid-frame. They're hidden by the glare, but she catches it. A mark scribbled next to her diner. Not a random meeting, not petty extortion. They're mapping control points on Highway 67. And Morgan's Way is a target, not a stop. They marked her like a problem. Iron Vipers run freight. She murmurs, connecting the dots. Not meth, not cars, people, it fits. The strange trucks that never stayed for food. The ones that parked with engines running, waiting for something behind the diner, not on the road. It wasn't a shakedown earlier today. It was a test, and she failed it in their eyes by fighting back. She scrubs forward again. She expects more planning. Instead, something worse happens. Sheriff Reed steps forward and draws a line over the marker of the diner. He taps it, then drags a thumb across his throat. Eliminate it. Keisha doesn't blink. When the law gets dirty. Her grandmother once told her, you don't shout, you build your case. Keisha closes the footage and exports the clip twice, one to her phone, one to an encrypted cloud. She tucks the USB drive into a small metal tin inside a hollow under the office desk. Known only to her and Shadow, a sudden metallic groan echoes outside. Not from the wind. Deliberate weight on metal. Someone steps near the propane tank. Keisha reaches for the bat under the desk, motions Shadow low. Then silence. She moves to the boarded window and peeks between planks. Pine branches sway. Nothing moves. Then she sees it, the glint of wet paint. She steps out, bat ready. Shadow pacing beside her, low, silent threat. The back wall of the diner now bears more marks. Not one, three steel snakes coiled together. A strike order. In gang code. That means no more warnings, no more intimidation. Next time is blood. She hears an engine growl somewhere in the trees. Two floods of light sweep across the lot and vanish. Shadow rumbles low. I know, she says. They're sending a message. But as she turns back to the diner, she sees something else, something small but deliberate. Beneath the fresh graffiti, a scrap of cardboard has been nailed to the wall. She pulls it free. For words scrawled in red marker glare up at her. This road is ours. Under that, another line added hastily in darker ink. Get out. Black girl. Her grip tightens. Heat runs down her spine. Not fear. Fire. She lifts her head. This road wasn't yours yesterday, she says into the night. It won't be yours tomorrow. She crumples the cardboard and drops it. Shadow presses against her leg solid. Ready. She goes back inside. Locks every door, checks every sensor. Sits at the counter with the old coffee machine humming behind her. Then she starts planning. No more fixing windows. No more hoping it quiets down. No more waiting for help that will never come. She lifts her grandmother's old mug. You built this place with grit, she murmurs to the photo on the wall. I'll defend it with war. And somewhere past the pines, 3 engines return circling, testing her resolve again. Let them circle. She'll be ready next time. She won't just survive. She'll fight back. Hard. Morning comes gray and heavy. Like the sky isn't sure it wants to commit to daylight. Keisha hasn't slept. Not a second. She sits at the counter with a notebook open. pen tapping like a steady metronome beside a cup of cold black coffee. On one page, a rough map of Morgan's Way Diner and the surrounding land. On the next, a list titled Defense Priorities, Visibility, Control Checkpoints Lighting Manipulation Events, Capture a Perimeter Alarms Escape Routes Last Resort Offensware. Doctrine simplified and adapted to a building, wrapped in nostalgia and pine trees. The diner may look small, but so were outposts in Kandahar before they were hardened. Shadow watches her from the corner, chin on his paws, loyal. Waiting. She circles the first item, visibility control, and gets to work. Step 1. Kill their eyes. Starts with the windows. The front of the diner has a row of large glass panes, framed in worn teal trim, part of her grandmother's charm. Bad for defense. Windows invite bullets, bricks, and men who think glass makes people weak. Keisha pulls two sheets of plywood from the back shed. They're rough and splintered, but they'll do. She cuts them to fit while Shadow lies nearby, tracking her movements. She scents the air, pine sap, diesel from the highway. The iron tang of yesterday's violence baked into the gravel. The first board goes up over the biggest front window, but she does not cover all windows completely. She leaves narrow horizontal slits, viewports. Outward visibility stays hers. Entry visibility denied. The diner now watches without being seen. Perimeter eyes, she mutters, stepping back. Ours, not theirs. By the time the sun climbs above the trees, the diner has transformed, not closed. Not defeated but armored. Step 2. Control the light. Fights are won in the dark by whoever understands light. She opens 3 boxes delivered last year for Christmas gifts from a veteran she once served with, who said, "You never know when you'll need bright ideas." Inside, industrial construction grade LED floodlights. Perfect. She installs them high under the awning and along the side facing the forest. Wired to switches only she knows. They don't light the diner, they light the enemy positions. If iron vipers come again, she'll blind them faster than they can blink. Step 3. Sound discipline. Predars stalk with noise. Professionals stalk in silence. She pulls a crate from under the counter, military-grade motion sensors, and contact alarms salvaged from base closures. She wires motion detectors to silent alerts that trigger on her phone. No sirens, no beeping, just intel. Next, she rigs a decoy, cheap battery-powered alarms, loud ones. They get tucked on the west side, obvious enough to be found. Not a mistake bait. If the gang cuts those alarms, they'll think they're safe. But those aren't the real traps. The real system sleeps quietly along the east and south fences, the kill zones. Good hunters let the enemy feel smart right before they shut the door. Step 4. Secure the nerve center inside. She moves tables strategically, creating covered movement lanes and shielded corners just out of sight from doors and windows. Her grandmother's diner now has tactical geometry. The long counter provides elevation and protection. The metal plating beneath makes it defensible. She reinforces it further with a sheet of concealed steel she found. In Bill the contractor's workshop, he lent it, no questions asked. She installs tripwire cameras, tiny, battery-powered squares you'd miss unless you knew where to look. One under the napkin station, one behind the pie shelf, another tucked inside a cracked cowboy boot decoration. The feeds linked to her phone, storing footage remotely and automatically uploaded to a server out of state. Even if they burn the diner, she'll still have proof. Step 5. Supply cache. Back closet becomes logistics central. Water, rations, first aid, flares, to fire extinguishers, zip ties, placard. Behind a false panel, her father's Remington 870 shotgun. Cleaned, oiled, loaded. Not a threat, a promise. Step 6. Shadow's role position training, she says. And Shadow rises. They drill hand signals and silent commands through the hall and booths. Downstay behind counter equals guard interior. Intercept at back door equals flank breach entry. Hold equals non-lethal bite. Control only. Seize equals weapon arm. Immediate disable. Guard equals defense posture over down hostile. Trace equals pursuit. Return equals instant recall. He executes flawlessly, gliding through chairs and broken furniture like water through rock. This isn't training. This is memory. Shadow was never just a pet. He was built for war. By noon, sweat streaks Keisha's face. Sawdust powders her shirt. Her hands ache, but something else settles in her bones resolve. She heads to the counter, runs a hand across the wood. The diner doesn't look weak anymore. It looks like it's standing its ground. Then gravel crunches outside. Shadow's head lifts. Keisha moves to the window and watches through the narrow viewing slit. A pickup truck eases into the lot. Dusty, familiar. Bill Abley, local contractor. He gets out slow. Looks around like he doesn't want trouble but expects it anyway. He spots the boarded windows and shakes his head. He carries something under one arm, lumber and metal brackets. Keisha opens the door, but keeps her hand on the handle. Looks different, Bill says. Prepper chic, long night, Keisha replies. He nods, eyes holding the kind of understanding that doesn't need words. Heard talk. Iron Viper's been prowling highway. Folks say they hit your place. Keisha doesn't confirm. Bill sets the wood down. I had extra. Thought you could use stronger reinforcement for the back door. He hesitates. No charge. I didn't ask for. You didn't have to, he says. People who build things gotta stick together. Too many people tearing it all down already. Something flickers behind his words. History here runs quiet but deep. Before he leaves, he nods at Shadow. Good dog. Shadow gives a single controlled tail thump. Approval noted. Later, as dusk bleeds across the pines, Keisha stands outside, surveying her work. The diner now looks like a fortress disguised as a memory. Roadside Americana wrapped in steel and defiance. She breathes deep. The night carries a bitter scent, not pine, not diesel. Gasoline. Her eyes snap to the road. Across the highway, far beyond the glow of her new floodlights, a vehicle idles in the tree line, engine faint. Lights off. Watching. Shadow growls. Keisha doesn't move. She just stares back. A match is being struck in the dark. War is coming. Night folds over Highway 67 like a hand closing. The pines swallow sound. Keisha sits in the dark of the office, phone warm in her palm, watching quiet green dots pulse across her screen, the motion sensors. Her breath is slow, practiced, the way she kept it in firefights and long watches overseas. Shadow lies beside her feet, muscle like a coiled spring. He breathes without a sound. 3 vehicles roll into the lot with the softness of hungry things. Headlights off, engines idling low so as not to wake the dead. Her motion feeds flick twice east line. West approach, then a low cascade as figures move into the kill zones. She doesn't flinch. She taps her screen. Lights. LED floods burst to life. White and cruel. The lot turns day bright in an instant. Shadows recede like frightened animals. The men shout, breathing sharp. Disoriented hands flash toward faces. Keisha doesn't aim to blind them forever. She aims to displace the advantage they'd assumed. From the hidden speakers she installed under the awning, a sound erupts, a cacophonous, disorienting alarm merge with a recording of a barking canine and a police siren loop. It's designed to break concentration, and it does its work. Flashing strobes on the periphery ping the men's eyes. Their formation collapses. The first to react is Red. He twitches like a hand pulled on a puppet. He swings a bottle toward the door. It shatters on reinforced wood, showering glass outward, useless. He bargains with the night with curses. He tries to muster the old swagger. The light eats it. Keisha drops the volume on the alarm to let a message play clear and deliberate. State police have been notified. This area is under surveillance. Dispense any unlawful activity and depart immediately. Her voice is flat, controlled. It's a bluff. Partially, she hasn't called anyone yet, but the message is enough. Men who depend on secrecy start to itch. To figures peel off and race for the back. The ones she expected to try the lock. They move like street ghosts, fast, confident. They are amateurs with an edge of aggression. One kneels at the back door and works a pick. The other watches the woods. Keisha watches the feed as the pick slips, metal scraping. She waits. Her finger finds the bat resting beside the counter, a last resort thing she keeps for a time. When finesse dies. But finesse hasn't died yet. A faint tug, her tripwire trips. Her phone buzzes, not loud. Just a steady pulse. Shadow goes from low to flight. He slips through the servicing entrance she'd left slightly unbolted, moving like a shadow with teeth. He doesn't bark. He doesn't maul. He moves to disable and control. The first man's shoulder drops as Shadow hits him, hands scrambling, breath smacking out of him. The dog clamps to his sleeve and pins his arm to the dirt. Professional, non-lethal, precise. It's the kind of bite that holds, not destroys a practiced control that terrifies the amateur into immediate compliance. Keisha moves like the light behind him. She slides past the back door, bat up, and meets the second man halfway between the propane tank and the scrub. He swings a crowbar. She sidesteps and directs the blow into his open hip with the flat of her palm, harsh, disabling. Not fatal. He collapses onto the gravel, stunned. Inside, Red has recovered enough rage to lunge for the door. Keisha meets him in the threshold, shotgun not raised, but clearly reachable. She plants one foot forward, weight balanced. Her voice is a blade now. Hands where I can see them. He snarls and charges. She doesn't shoot. The bat finds ribs, instead solid, decisive. He crumples, winded and furious. Nux tries to come in from the side. She hooks his wrist, jerks. Nux stumbles. Shadow closes the circle and clamps down on his forearm. They go down in a small, noisy heap of curses and gravel. Duke lies under the porch, cursing and bleeding from a snapped skin tear along his forearm, enough to mark the night, not enough to end it. Keisha uses zip ties. She keeps in a coffee tin button from supply runs, binding hands with efficiency. She was taught intense and on tarmac. They're restrained and secure before any of them can think clearly. All the while her cameras record angles that capture faces, vehicles. The briefcase somebody dropped, hands exchanging cash. Her phone hums in her palm as the upload script runs, automatic, silent, encrypted. A mirror stream sends footage to a cloud server beyond state lines. She set it up for exactly this. If her local sheriff burned the evidence, she'd still have the proof captured in a place he couldn't torch. The men who came to intimidate now writhe in defeat, faces slick with blood and fear. The leader, the man from the sedan, the one with authority in his posture, hasn't moved. He stands near the truck, phone in hand, eyes darting between the chaos and the tree line. He's the one who'd worn the county jacket. You can feel the moment where calculation meets panic. Keisha, hands steady, steps to the center of her diner's ruined lot. Shadow sits at her side, obedient and severe. She kneels, pulls her phone up, and hits a button that rings out like a bell into the night. An automated report to state. Police body of text. GPS coordinates. Uploaded footage, indexes. It's the one move that can't be undone. She doesn't need to say it loud. The men hear it in the way her shoulders set, in the way her mouth opens. The leader swears and starts toward his vehicle. Sheriff Dalton Reed's face, if it belongs to him, was pale in the footage, hand over mouth. A man caught between two masks, but their panic is real. They scramble toward trucks, drag their wounded, and stagger away. Tires spitting gravel as they race away into the dark. Red's final shout behind them is a curse and a threat. It's the sound of men who have lost the only advantage they thought they owned. Keisha stands over the bound men and looks at each face. None of them are monsters in stories, just small men with bigger illusions. She locks the last of the ties and straightens, cold and resolute. Shadow rests his head on her boot. The dog's breath fogs in the night. "Stay," she tells him softly. Then she turns and paces to the back door where the pick still lays abandoned, a smear of dirt on its metal. She lifts it like evidence. The phone vibrates again, text messages splitting the dark with words she's both expecting and dreading. Minutes ago, the state police received an automated suspicious activity upload from Morgan's Way Diner. Multiple cameras show a coordinated attempt to intimidate and vandalize. Coordinates attached, evidence linked, farther down the line. A different alert flashes on her screen. Live feed reach. A patrol car's headlights sweep the crest of a hill. Not the sheriff's, state marked. Keisha breathes. For the first time since the graffiti dried on her wall, oxygen feels like ally. But there is no triumphant shout. There is only the long, slow work of documentation, the cold of processed adrenaline, and the low weight of what's still to come. Courtrooms, indictments, the smell of laundering power that doesn't want to be seen. She kneels by Duke, the kid who thought he could win with a blade, and looks him in the eyes. "You picked the wrong woman," she says. Not loud, just sure. He glares. It's small. It's all he has. The hum of an approaching engine grows louder, and through the pines comes a set of lights brighter than anything Pine Hollow has seen in a while. Red and blue, authoritative and impartial. The men who thought they owned this stretch of road see their mistake not in the chains around their wrists, but in the bright, flashing certainty on the horizon. Keisha stands and lets the sirens approach. Around her, the diner holds its breath. Tonight, Morgan's Way Diner did not burn. Tonight, it held. And Caroline's photo on the wall. Keisha's grandmother seemed to look down with a small, satisfied smile, as if to say, that's how you keep a flame alive. The night smelled like gun oil and pine bark when the state police arrived. Blue and red strobes washed over the boarded windows of Morgan's Way Diner, painting the gravel lot in chaos-colored light. But Keisha didn't flinch. She stood in the center of it, calm, controlled, shadow by her side like a living shadow with teeth. 7 iron vipers lay zip-tied on the ground, 2 unconscious, 1 moaning. Blood, sweat, and dirt painted across their clothes. Not a single life-threatening wound, just humiliation and controlled dismantling. That was deliberate. If there was going to be justice, she needed survivable criminals. Dead ones don't flip on sheriffs. A woman in a dark uniform stepped forward. State Trooper Riley Vega, rank stripes on her sleeve. Her posture said no wasted movement. Her eyes swept the scene, sharp and assessing. "Mum," she said, voice steady but clipped. "We got a 911 auto dispatch from this location. That came with a full bundle of attached video evidence. You want to tell me what I'm walking into?" Keisha handed over her phone, already queued with timestamps. Organized assault. Retaliation for attempted extortion earlier today. All documented. You'll find vehicle plates in the uploads and faces matched on perimeter cams. These men are Iron Vipers. Their leader, Red McCready, fled before you arrived. There's a bigger operation behind them. Trooper Vega watched the footage without commentary. Keisha could tell the moment the fight footage scrolled to Silas. Red McCready's face, the recognition in Vega's eyes was brief but unmistakable. He wasn't just some thug. He was known. "Get EMS staging," Vega ordered the troopers behind her. Then she stepped closer. "I'm not seeing any excessive force here. These are tactical holds, controlled strikes, training-grade takedowns. What are you, military police?" "Former U.S. Army," Keisha said. "I know rules of engagement. I also know escalation protocol." Vega gave a slight nod, respect where it was earned. "Then why didn't you wait for county enforcement?" Keisha's jaw hardened. "Because county enforcement is part of the problem." Vega's brows knit. Before she could respond, another set of headlights burst into the lot. Dust flew. A black Chevy Tahoe crunched to a rough stop at the edge of the crime scene. Tape. As if tape never applied to it. Sheriff Dalton Reed climbed out. Hat low, belt heavy, smile sharp as broken glass. "Stand down," he said before even reaching them. "This is my county. I'll take it from here." The troopers froze, not out of obedience, but out of calculation. The air cracked with silent tension. Vega didn't move. "Sheriff Reed, this is an open investigation under state jurisdiction now. You weren't dispatched here. You weren't even notified. How did you know to show up?" Reed's jaw ticked. "Radio chatter. No official channel reported this yet," she said. He stepped closer. Boots grinding gravel. "Then maybe I heard it from a concerned citizen." "No," Keisha said coldly. "You heard it from your men when they didn't make it back to whatever illegal meeting spot you set up tonight." The lot went silent. Reed turned to her slowly. "If hate had eyes, they'd look like his. You got a lot of nerve talking like you know something, girl." Shadow growled a low, living threat. Reed's hand twitched toward his holster. Keisha didn't blink. "Touch that weapon, and you'll be the first sheriff in Arkansas history to get shot on 37 different cameras at once." Trooper Vega stepped between them. "Sheriff Reed, you're interfering with a state operation. I'm going to need you to." Reed surged forward and shoved her shoulder. "Back off." And that was the moment his mask fell. In a single second, everything changed. Vega didn't stumble. Instead, she nodded once to the troopers behind her. "Sheriff Dalton Reed," she said, voice ringing like a gavel in the lot. "You are under arrest for obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence in a state investigation." and suspicion of organized criminal conspiracy. His eyes went wide. What? You can't. But the cuffs were already out. State troopers moved fast. Weapons drawn, not on Keisha. On him. Reed fought like a cornered dog. You idiots don't know who you're protecting. She's lying. She brought vigilante crime to this road. She trained that dog to attack me. She's dangerous. Keisha watched, face unreadable. Vega hit play on the video Keisha had sent. The little screen showed Reed standing behind Red's truck, exchanging envelopes and maps, taking money, nodding. It was over. His face drained of color. He stopped fighting. Walk away now, he told Vega through clenched teeth. Or regret it later. She leaned close. Sir, you just threatened a state officer on camera. Want to try again? He broke then. Not physically, spiritually. The kind of break that happens when a crooked man realizes nobody fears him anymore. They took him to a waiting cruiser. He didn't speak another word. In 20 minutes, the entire scene turned into a mobile data hall. Crime techs uncoiled cables and bagged tools. Vans arrived, one marked State Investigations Bureau, another ominously marked FBI, not because Keisha called them, but because Reed's arrest set off alarms in the justice system. Turns out when a sheriff gets caught partnering with an interstate gang, Washington wakes up fast. Ms. Morgan, Agent Dawes said, stepping forward, FBI badge gleaming. Looks like you just cracked open a pipeline we've been trying to touch for 3 years. Pipeline? She asked. He nodded. Human trafficking. Interstate distribution routes. Louisiana to Missouri, through Arkansas. This diner sits on a corridor the Vipers want, and your sheriff was paid to keep it quiet. Keisha's stomach iced. You're telling me they're moving people across this highway? People, he confirmed grimly. Women, runaways, immigrants, they disappear on long roads like this. Nobody asks questions. You did. Her hand tightened into a fist. So now what? Now, Dawes said, we take the rest of them down, but we're going to need your help. The last of the Iron Vipers were loaded into vans. Blue lights cut the darkness. The sky began to lighten near the horizon, as if dawn was simply too stubborn to miss the show. But Keisha knew the truth. This wasn't over. You don't cut one head off a snake and expect it to die quietly. There would be retaliation. There would be new faces, darker money, bigger guns. War had just stepped into daylight, and Morgan's way would not run. The sun rose slow over Pine Hollow, one of those stubborn southern dawns that doesn't rush for anybody. It crawled across Highway 67, kissed the wreckage of Morgan's Way Diner, and warmed the stubborn bones of a building that refused to fall. By the time the light reached Keisha, she was already awake. If she had slept, she couldn't remember it. Shadow moved beside her as she walked the wreck of the dining room, boots crunching over broken glass, still waiting to be swept. Sunlight spilling through boarded gaps like hope that didn't know when to quit. The fire hadn't been hers, but the scars were. The gang had come back once more in the night, before their rest, just long enough to throw Molotov cocktails and laugh as the walls burned. Keisha and Shadow made it out. Alive, the diner almost did in single quotes almost. But almost doesn't win. Almost doesn't bury a Morgan. Keisha ran her hand over the blackened counter. Her grandmother's counter. Fire didn't erase what it stood for, only exposed what needed rebuilding. Shadow nudged her hand, and for a moment she let herself lean into him. Not weak, just human. A truck slowed in front of the diner. Then another. Then 3 more. Doors opened. Boots hit gravel. Keisha turned, half wary, until she saw faces she knew. Earl, Mrs. Henderson, Bill the contractor, Pete from the sawmill, Sarah from the clinic, even old man Rowan, who didn't like anybody, brought a box of nails under one arm and a silent knot under his hat. A line of people formed at her front door. Nobody said they were coming. Nobody had to. Mrs. Henderson broke from the line first. Well, she said, voice strong as iron left in the rain. Let's get to work. Keisha froze. For the first time in years, she didn't have words. Earl patted a toolbox. You ain't facing this alone. Not on our road. Other voices followed. We don't care what uniform that sheriff wore. We don't bow to corruption here. They tried to scare you out. That means they're scared of you staying. You held your ground. The least we can do is stand on it with you. Bill dropped planks of fresh lumber at Keisha's feet. Far as I'm concerned, Sheriff Reed's badge never meant a damn thing your grit does. Pete, the ex-sheriff's deputy, spit in the dirt. Law ain't in office. Law is truth held with spine. And just like that, without speeches or permission slips, a community built itself around her. Hammers replaced gunshots. Laughter replaced breaking glass. Walls went up. Windows came back. Hope grew like a thing you can build with bare hands. For 2 weeks, the diner became a work site and a sanctuary. Vietnam vets hung drywall. College kids sanded tables. Someone donated new booths. A church group replaced wiring and didn't charge a cent. An artist from Memphis painted a mural on the sidewall. 3 black women, standing shoulder to shoulder, Keisha, her grandmother, and Shadow right in front like a guardian spirit. At night, when the volunteers finally left, Keisha stayed awake under the stars, drawing air like recovering from drowning. She didn't trust peace yet, but she didn't fear the next day anymore. News cameras eventually arrived. Satellite trucks crowded the highway. Reporters pitched dramatic headlines. Former soldier fights off corrupt sheriff. Human trafficking ring smashed in rural Arkansas. Black woman turns roadside diner into last stand. Viral. Everywhere. But Keisha didn't do interviews. Not really. Every reporter asked how she felt. She ignored the bait. This isn't a story about me, she said. This is about a road that belongs to everybody, and people trying to steal it. The justice system is slow, but it moves hardest when cornered by truth. The FBI indicted 8 Iron Vipers leaders. More arrests followed in Louisiana and Missouri. Sheriff Dalton Reed faced trial. First extortion, conspiracy, trafficking cover-up, racketeering. He never once looked at Keisha in court. She looked at him. He didn't intimidate her now. He looked like what he always was, a man who traded his soul for a little local power. And lost it anyway. The courtroom held people who once feared him but now sat straighter, spoke louder, looked him in the eye. When the verdict came guilty on all counts, Keisha didn't smile. Justice isn't a celebration. It's a promise kept. Autumn came to Pine Hollow on the morning Morgan's Way reopened. Flags lined the road. Locals packed the lot. A small brass plaque beside the new front door read, Morgan's Way Diner, a place that stands its ground, rebuilt by the people of Pine Hollow. 20 to 5. Keisha cut the ribbon with Shadow sitting proud beside her. Applause rolled over them like thunder. Earl cried openly. Mrs. Henderson hugged her so long it hurt. A choir from Mount Hope Church sang Lift Every Voice and Sing Under the Trees. And even the highway seemed too quiet to listen. When the doors opened, the diner flooded with life. Coffee steam, skillet sizzle, forks on plates. The world felt real again. Not soft but right. Journalists still camped outside, waiting. One finally got close enough to ask a question as Keisha poured coffee for a family of 5. What do you want people to take away from what you did here? He asked. She set the carafe down and met his eyes. I didn't do anything extraordinary, she said. I stood up. That's it. Standing up is something every person has the right to do, no matter who tries to tell them to sit down. That night, when the diner quieted and the highway settled, Keisha locked up and sat at the counter with Shadow at her feet. She poured one last cup of coffee and set another one beside it. For her grandmother. For the road. The old neon sign buzzed outside the window. Welcome travelers. Keisha looked at it and said softly, Yeah, welcome. But just so we're clear. She tapped the counter twice, voice low steel. This road belongs to no one. And this diner stands. Shadow exhaled slow, steady. Outside, the highway stretched into the night, free, unclaimed, alive. The bell over the door chimed once more. Another traveler had found their way. And Morgan's Way Diner would be ready. Always.